video, I want to talk to you about clarity. You do not have a cash flow problem. You don't have a people's problem. You have a clarity problem. And every time we blame on a person, our employees, the issues that we're having in our company, it's all a result of clarity. So in this video, I'm going to describe a process that you can follow to gain clarity. I have to advise you, not everyone is suited for this, because one of the objections you might have is, I don't have time. But you will be able, it's going to take you time to get to the point where you want to be. So let's talk about clarity. Clarity is a value clarification process. What do you value? And so in this book that I wrote for people that wanted to scale in their businesses, I go through this process, and I'm talking here about chapter 1. You can find it in anywhere you want, but we're going to go through this every chapter in YouTube, so you don't even have to buy the book, perhaps. So clarity for outcomes in our businesses. What do we want? We want a business that perhaps is a legacy. Do you know why you created your business? In my case, I wanted to create a legacy. Now, in that process, that means creating wealth for me. Creating wealth in all senses of the world, because wealth is not only money. Wealth is abundance of so many things. We're not going to go there because I don't want to digress. I want to take you to a process for you to get the money that you believe you can have in your business. You need to be able to maximize cash flow. You need to be able to reduce risk, minimize risk, and you need to be able to protect profit. We are in business to make money. And many of us, many contractors, we just forget that. We don't know how to make that happen. You want to build a company that reflects who you are. And so in this process, you want to ask questions to yourself. Yesterday, I did a clarity session for somebody pretty wealthy and desiring to, with an idea of a project. And where you believe you want to do something for one reason, through a questioning process, you realize the person has other value, other things you value. So you want to really clarify the value. What is it that I value? What's important for me? So questions like, for example, to gain clarity, what do I want? What do I really want? It's very important. And it looks like a simple question, but many of us are not trained to ask that question, give ourselves permission to know what we want, because there's conflicts. There's conflict we have. Can I really want the money? Because sometimes we get confused that money is not good, money, I don't care about money, etc., etc. I'm not going to go there with the emotional issues that we have related to money. Do we want a company for a legacy? Do we want a company to give people opportunities? Do we want a company that we can sell and scale and sell? What do we want? And I tell you, when I started the company, we didn't ask that question. When we started, we didn't even ask that question. What do we want? For us, it was only, can we handle this company, these projects differently? Perhaps there were things that we were not in agreement with on how you treat people, and they were against our principle, not being truthful to the word, conflictive all the time. You know, we've worked for for people that don't honor their word. They really don't. And that kind of stuff really didn't sit well with me and my partner. So we create our company. But in terms of what do we want for profitability, we didn't allow ourselves permission to ask those questions. And through the journey, we encountered problems, for example, in the selection of the client. We did not have clarity at the beginning of what kind of client do I want. You know, you talk about mission and vision, but it's more like a concept. It's not really something that is truthfully allowing you and your team to make decisions. Make decisions when there is a challenge and you're not even around. So, clarity is about what do I want? What do I value? Why is that important for me? And in what order? Because it's not only the financial aspect, but are you creating a company to obtain freedom? Or did you create a company so nobody tells you what to do and you don't have anybody controlling you? Or did you do it to make life better for other people? Did you do it? In my case, I did have single women as a something I held very close to my heart. And I thought God was giving me this company as a channel to help single women that were not going to have an opportunity otherwise. And I really believe that construction is teachable. There's at the core, I believe construction is teachable. So I wanted kind of to prove that and give people opportunities. So there's a lot of reasons why we start a company. But the important thing here is that the company that you create has to mirror your value system, your partner's value system. Otherwise, there's going to be conflicts. And that's how your culture will be built. So we build people and we build a future in the process, in the journey of a company. So let's ask this question. 3 years from now, we're still in the clarity section. 3 years from now, and this is about you, you first, more than anything. Because if this company doesn't work for you, then it doesn't make sense. It's not going to fulfill you. So you want to really gain clarity as to what's going to make you feel amazing, regardless of the challenges, 3 years, 9 years, 1 year down the line, 3 years down the line, 10 years down the line, 20 years down the line. What's going to keep you going? What's the gas? What gives you hunger? What can you create? Because this company that you have, it's just a vessel. So looking back 3 years from now, you look back at this moment, what do you really want? What's going to really make this experience of entrepreneurship all worth it? And that's a question worth asking, because entrepreneurship, I say, is a spiritual game, but it's not easy. There's probably less rewards in the moment than you would think, that you would want. It's a lot harder sometimes than even working for someone else, I believe. But it's also more rewarding for me. So those questions are something that you want to start asking. So in one bucket, we're talking, this is what you want to generate wealth. I don't know if you can see this. You want to generate wealth because it's very hard to fulfill without the money. Money solves problems. It's very hard to satisfy your client when there's no money. And I find it hard to believe that you're going to find people that are going to work for you without the money. Some entrepreneurs, some of us really don't have that concept. We do it for more than the money. The money is not the primary cause of why we do business. It's that if that was the case, then we probably wouldn't last a long time, because especially when you're not guided at the beginning, because you can lose money, right? You can lose a lot of money, but you can also keep going, make it better, and adjust. So here's the second bucket: clarity in the business. Why do I say you first? Because you're the one that created the business. You're the one that is, you're the leader. You're leading the business. So the second bucket. So here's, I'm gonna use blue. So the first bucket is you. You and all the desires that you have. Let me see. Can you see this? The first bucket is you. The second bucket is the clarity on the business. And in this area, you want to spend time defining what's the vision for the business, what's the mission for the business, and what are the values. So vision, in the future, I'm going to have an electronic board. Vision, mission, and values. I kid you not, that this was not that easy for me when I was starting. And along the journey, you know, gaining clarity is not, I say sometimes is more difficult than what we believe. That's why you want to give yourself time and maybe go to an isolated place and ask these questions. The book here has a ton of questions that every chapter has, but you can let me show you. It's got 3 pages worth of questions that if you go through it, I guarantee you'll have a lot of clarity, and you will know how to proceed and where to go and what to do, what not to do. If you develop this habit, you're going to make so much money. It's going to be so worth it. Why? Because clarity affects all aspects of the business. Let's say the mission, the vision. The vision tells you the future. Where are you going? And I'm going to simplify this like this in this video. Where are you going? What's the future? It tells you that, but it tells everyone else. It tells your clients. It tells your staff, your team. It tells your vendors. These are conversations that you want to have with every single person that interacts with your business. Because how are they going to know if they can actually have a business relationship with you? Look, I tell you, this is like a marriage. And or any relationship, whether it's a friend, a partnership, or so and so, if you don't have clarity, you will have challenges along the way. And clarity has to be gained constantly, because people change, the environment changes, priorities change. That's why I say clarity is value clarification. Let's go to the mission. Mission will identify to you and to your team and to everyone that is under that vision, that umbrella, how to execute on a daily basis, how to solve problems. When they have confusion, whether they have to decide to repair something, right? What are my prioritizing? And I don't want to go into the details, because every mission, every vision is different. So I want you to come up with your own vision and with your own mission. Here's the other one that is very, very, very important: values. Values is extremely important. Defining your values is defining your identity as a person, right? Because it's your business, so it's gonna definitely have your imprint, but also what's valuable to you in the business. It's it's how the culture will be defined. Do I value excellence? Do I value telling the truth? Do I value, I'm, I'm sure you're not like this, but do you value gossiping? You know, do you value talking bad about other people? Do you value blaming? Right? I'm sure that's not you. But if you allow that kind of behavior, for example, you're going to regret it. It's country, this this industry, construction, it's there's so many projects you go around, and the first conflict that you find, somebody wants to point the finger at somebody. It's incredible. Nobody, in a place like that, people don't take ownership. And when you don't take ownership, you go around and around and around and around. That is a value in establishing your culture. And culture is everything in the environment of business. Like Peter Drucker, I always love how he says that culture is strategy for breakfast, which means that you can have the best strategy put together, the best plan. You can pay a consultant for a plan, but if you don't have the culture that is going to execute the plan, it's not going to work. And there are places that probably you will find the culture doesn't mirror your culture. If you get to a place like that, there's going to be problems. That's why clarity, what kind of culture do you want? What kind of culture do I want to pursue in my client? It's very important as well. So when we say the business, your identity is the culture. Your identity probably will be reflected in your business. And it's so incredible. This is so incredible that people are going to start telling you, your clients, people that meet your people, your team, they're gonna say, wow, it's amazing to work with Lunacon, for example. I had a client tell me, wow, it's so easy. Right. That doesn't mean that we didn't have differences. But when you solve problems easy, it feels easy. It's incredible for everyone, because nobody feels that it's being taken advantage of. And the truth is spoken. It's communication. Is communication part of your identity? Can you actually have crucial conversation? I notice that these classes are reflecting. Can you actually have crucial conversations? Can you speak your truth with respect and avoid to blame? Can you do that? Is that the culture that you have in your business, or is your business culture, because you're under stress and fear, the first reaction is to blame somebody? This is how do you do it? It's worth paying attention to, because like I said at the beginning, you don't have a people problem. You have a clarity problem. Because until you don't sit down to create this journey, what's my vision? What's my mission? What are my values? How do I hire? So the reason why I said that about the people is that until you don't do that, and this happened to me, sometimes we believe construction projects are going to get done just with the material and the equipment. I don't know. You put everything on time at the job site and it's just going to get done. You need people. So when you have clarity about your vision, your mission, your values, now you're going to be able to determine what are we doing with this enterprise. For that to happen, you want to understand, where am I today? What do I have? What do I have? What are my resources? What's my capital? What relationships do I have? What's the niche that I'm good at? What market do I want to pursue? And the leverage that I can what can I leverage? What systems or processes do I already have? And when you understand where you are today and you understand where you want to be, now you can establish a roadmap to get there. That is also clarity. Clarity is a lengthy process, but it's a beautiful process, because once you have that, now everyone that jumps on your in your company on that train to go to the vision that you defined is going to have a great time, because they know what needs to happen. A lot of times what we do, we just go into it. We don't do this work. We don't have clarity on the outcomes by the different areas. How much money do I want? How do I want to execute? What system do I have? What do I need? What's the organizational structure that I need? When you don't have that, it's very hard for anybody that comes work with you, anybody in your team, to be able to do this. And it's painful. It's painful for everybody. That's why I'm saying, if you don't have a people problem, you have a clarity problem. You don't have a cash flow problem. You have a people problem. Many times we confuse a symptom with a problem. We think it's cash flow, but it's that your staff is not billing on time. What's preventing them from doing that? Is it that you hire the wrong people in your team? Because you didn't give a scorecard, because you didn't have a dashboard to manage the process. One of the most important things you need to do for every single employee that you have is give them a scorecard. When you're hiring somebody, people come to you and promise a ton of things, but are they able to deliver to the quality and the standard that you understand that you are entitled to? Is there clarity as to what's expected from me as an employer, as a company, what's expected from the person that I'm hiring? Is there absolute clarity as to what is the outcome for a position? Do they have a roadmap on what can they do, what can they not do, when to ask questions? It gave me an incredible amount of peace when I sat down, and it was a lot of work to design per role what is a project manager responsible for. We think many times the project manager, it's very easy to say, oh, the project manager is responsible for the cost. But when you don't have clear expectations as to the outcome, how much money are you bringing here? What are you responsible for? When you don't have that level of clarity, well, guess what? You're hiring without the right information, because somebody's going to tell you, yeah, I was a project manager here and here and there, but they are not clear as to what is success in this role. And if they don't have that clarity and you have another expectations, boy, you're not going to sleep well. You're not going to sleep well, because you haven't taken the time to define that clarity. That's why I tell you that spending the time to take your organizational structure and defining the role and the outcomes more than anything for every single position is crucial. And how do you do that? Once you define your roles, you understand what you have, right? Once you define your outcomes and you understand where you are, well, you get your organizational structure and you assign based on the many things, on the capabilities of the person, right? You assign, and the personality. The personality is very crucial. If you don't have clarity on the personality that is required for a project manager, and the personality that is required for a superintendent, and the personality that is required for a person in business development, oh my gosh, you are really going to have a lot of problems. Because the person that you have in estimating is not the same person that is going to take the execution to optimize execution every single day. There is a type of personality that will be making jokes all the time and is not going to be able to execute. But the person that is making is social, is very nice and very funny, that's not the same person that is going to execute at the highest level. The person that is very nice and very social probably is the best person that you have for business development. You gotta know what personality belongs to which position. That also is clarity. It's a journey. And so once you understand, I have outcomes for the company. This is where I am. This is where I have on my sales process. So you want revenue, right? You want backlog and you want money in the bank. Let's say it's as simple as 3. You want at least, let's just talk the basic is revenue. But you need backlog. You need momentum in the backlog process. You need backlog, which is really the projects that you are capturing during the estimating pre-construction process. You need revenue and you need money in the bank. How much backlog? Well, that's a representation of how much capital do you have, how much bonding capacity do you have, what can you execute, how much experience do you have. So all these questions are going to allow you to see the effectiveness in getting this momentum. But if you're starting, that probably is your biggest priority, because what are you going to execute on if you don't have any projects? If you already have a backlog, you want to continue to drive momentum on that, but learn very well how to execute at the highest level. Revenue in construction is recognized the moment we start getting work done. You could have a contract, multiple contracts. Until you cannot start working, you can't recognize it. You could be spending money, which is a relationship that you want to be very, very, very in tune to. You want to have clarity there too. You don't want to have huge separations from the moment you start spending money on a project prior to NTP or your ability to start billing, which is more important than the NTP, because you can have an NTP and not bill for who knows how long. You want to shorten that gap from NTP to the first time that you bill. And that is something that you need to maintain focus on. So going back to people, is the person in your team every day focusing on how much can we produce in the field today? Is that the main focus they have? And are they capable of doing it? Because you can have people in the field, project managers that don't even know how to do a schedule. Is that what you want? Or do you have a backup plan for that? So they don't know how to maximize time and reduce risk. The other thing that you want to take into consideration is the money, because you cannot realize profit, right, until the money is in the bank. If you have a change order and you have potential profit, if it's not in the bank, you can't count on it. So it doesn't count. That level of clarity is important. And then the other thing that you don't want to have is losing money. So at the same time, you're focusing on revenue, you're focusing on the profitability and the cash flow. But at the same time, the culture, you need to have a pulse on the culture. Because if the culture fails, all of this stuff gets affected. You want to have a pulse in your processes. Processes is something we sometimes, most of the time, we leave at for last. Because you could have the work, but for forever, nobody gave me processes when I was growing my experience in construction. Processes take time, and often companies don't dedicate the time to design how do I want this machine to run. So process is key because they allow you to either make money or you're going to have leakage of money. Customer, very important. Very, very important in the area of backlog, pre-construction. If you don't have clarity as to what client do I want, what client do I really want, what niche do I really want to participate on, where can I be excellent at what I do, that's going to be an issue. Why? Because once you have the client and the contract, it might be a little late to gain clarity. Because once you're married, it's late. Because a divorce in construction costs a lot of money, right? How do you divorce from a contract? You either abandon the project, which I don't recommend, or you push through it. And it's one of the worst experiences to get into a contract with somebody that you regret going to a contract, that you felt that you were disguised, that you didn't do your homework, that I wish I had done my homework to understand what are my values, what are the values of the client, what's my mission, what's my vision, what's my culture, what's their culture. Doing that level of research is important because when you find out, it's kind of late and you're going to suffer the consequences in terms of cash flow, the stress that you're going to get. Spending time doing this is so important. We think often that revenue is what we want. Let me get more work. Let me get more work. But work at a price of interacting with the wrong client, for you, it might be good for someone else. Okay, it might be good if the client lies and doesn't keep their word, but you do, that's a problem. But if you both lie and don't keep your word, then you're in the same environment. So you want to understand who do you want to work with? What do you want to put your people through? And so, do you want to put your people through a journey that they're going to be stressed and waking up at night stressed about their relationship with this client? So, clarity in this order: you, your business, your people, your customers, your partners. They all need to align in the vision, the mission, and the values. And when you start marketing this client, is the time that you have to spend to really decide, ask questions. The asking question is one of the best tools for value clarification. And really listening to what problem do they have, what challenges do they have, and this is across the board with everybody, with yourself, in your business, because you want to assess what are the obstacles that you have in your business, in what areas. your biggest obstacle so you can prioritize it. You want to do the same thing with the people that you have, because your people also have their needs that we need to find a way to meet. Your customers, your vendors, your trade partners. Listen, when we have an issue with any relationship, in all of these that I just mentioned, they are all relationships. The reason why we have an issue is because we have values that are conflicting. And perhaps we don't have, one of my mentors says, intestinal fortitude, Myron Golden. You don't have the tools, you don't have a way to have crucial conversations. You feel afraid for what's going to happen because you value this person, you value their relationship. You're afraid, are we going to go into litigation? Are we going to, all the objections that we have. But the longer we wait in clarifying what is the difference, what is the conflict, what is the objections they have in their heads, or I have in my head, the longer you wait to have a crucial conversation, the more you're prolonging a problem that will not disappear without a crucial conversation, without clarity, without clarification. Because humans, we tend to avoid conflict. We tend to run away from pain. Whereas we're not trained, most of us, to do that, especially in construction, right? So prioritize your values, because at the end of the day, you are the face of the company. You really are the one that are going to receive all the problems, most of the problems. You're going to be responsible. You're the leader. Identify that. Be clear. What makes you happy? What will make you push through anything? Identify that. Gain clarity over that. Give yourself the gift to dedicate the necessary time to obtain crystal clear clarity in all the areas of the business. In the pre-construction area, in the execution area, in the people side. But aside from that, everything needs processes. So I know it seems simple, but it's very, very worth it when you spend the time to gain clarity, and it doesn't have to be done in one day. In the next video that we do on chapter 2, we're going to go through all the areas of the business, the risk management area, all of the stuff that we have to take into consideration in the risk management in order not to lose money. Because our industry is two things: cash flow and risk. You need to take care of that in order to make money. But at the same time, you have to prioritize people. And you have to prioritize you. With that said, my intention is that you find more clarity in your business and you develop a foundation from the beginning and a passion to dive deep into what you want and what the company wants, and it becomes part of your process, your behavior, that people are constantly looking for clarity, and it's a conversation, and they can actually do it without you also. When they are in a project and they have challenges, they can immediately resource to, let me understand the problem. What's really the problem? And let me understand what drives the values, what drives this decision or this outcome. A great way to also ask a reverse question is, as far as clarity, is understanding the outcomes. And so understand where you are, where you want to be, and design a roadmap to get you there. And of course, frequently, as much as possible, evaluate and measure so you can adjust as frequently as you can. With that, I'll see you in the next video. Next chapter. Have a nice day now.